This video will be a little different to my others, as I usually focus on legacy players. Players who have since retired, but who have stories which I feel haven't been fully told. Peanuts, however, is still active. He's currently doing really well in the LCK in fact. But in light of the recent news that he will be doing his military service at the end of this year, I feel like there's no time better than the present to tell one of his many stories. Peanut has had a decade-long career, and for the most part, every single year has been noteworthy. In 2016, he won the eternal support and love of fans during his time on the Rocks Tigers, cementing himself as a fan favourite and a player to watch going forward. He furthered his popularity when he joined SKTT1 in 2017, winning MSI and even making a Worlds Finals appearance. And of course, he's had recent domestic dominance on both Gen G and Hanwha Life Esports, winning numerous championships and perhaps even eyeing up a Worlds win this year. But even a player as decorated and loved as Peanut has had his low points. After a disastrous 2019 on Gen G, Peanut's future was looking a little cloudy. Despite being the highest paid jungler in Korea, Peanut had his worst year yet. Teams and fans were starting to doubt his abilities, and certainly began thinking he wasn't worth the high cost.
Hey guys, Editor Tom here, just popping in to say if you enjoy these videos, if you could put up a like and a subscribe, that'd be really appreciated, as these videos take me a very long time, and I hope you enjoy them. Back to the video.
So what happened next? Well, for the average viewer of LoL Esports, he practically vanished. But for those who followed the competitive scene more aptly, in 2020, Peanut joined a bottom tier Chinese team, LGD Gaming. Put yourself in Peanut's shoes for a second. Imagine spending your entire career on high profile teams, playing with some of the best players to ever touch the game. And now, after one pretty bad year, you're at the bottom of the Chinese league on a team that hadn't accomplished anything since 2015. And what's worse, the players around you are just plain bad. The previous year, LGD Gaming finished 14th out of 16 teams, and they seemingly had zero ambition to improve, as going into 2020, they kept 3 out of 5 of their players. Peanut was being dropped into a steaming pile of garbage. But surely with the addition of a world-class jungler like Peanut, things could only improve, right? Well, no. LGD finished the spring split 15th out of the now 17 teams. They only won 5 of their 16 matches, failing to make playoffs. This was the first ever time in his career where Peanut failed to qualify for playoffs as a starting player. But despite the team failing to achieve anything in spring, Peanut still put up a notable performance. Out of the 15 games they won, he was awarded MVP 6 times. Notably, he earned 2 MVP votes when LGD beat the 4th place team, Top Esports. Throughout the series, Peanut out-jungled Kasa and even stole Baron in Game 2. Alongside LGD's bot laner, Kramer, Peanut was the carry for this team, and the stats reflected this. He had the second highest kills of all junglers at 126 in 38 games. That's 26% of his team's overall kills. He had the 5th highest damage per minute of all junglers and averaged a 50% first blood rate. He also put up a respectable 75% kill participation. Despite being on a 15th place team, Peanut was keeping up with the top junglers in the LPL. Remember, the jungle role in competitive League of Legends is severely tied to the success of the solo laners, and LGD had some really bad solo laners, constantly giving priority over to their opponents and losing their lanes almost every game. With this team, most junglers would have struggled to find any success, but Peanut was able to do a lot more than you'd ever expect. In fact, his efforts were recognised in Week 6, where he was not only awarded Best Jungler of the Week, but also the Best Player of the Week. And at the end of the spring split, he was voted to be on the 3rd All-Pro team, alongside players like 369, Knight, and Crisp. Again, LGD finished 15th place. They were the 3rd worst team in the league, and yet Peanut was still playing like a top 3 jungler. And in summer, he continued to level up LGD's gameplay. With the addition of Jie and Nongshim in the mid and top lane respectively, LGD torpedoed into the playoffs, finishing 6th with 10 wins. Peanut finally had real solo laners, and he was able to lead LGD to the highest finish they'd had in over 4 years. With an upgrade in the mid lane, LGD now had 2 decent carry players, in Jie and Kramer. This allowed Peanut to develop in other areas like his shot calling and overall team cohesion. I genuinely believe that this 1 year in the LPL made Peanut a much better and well-rounded player. He couldn't rely on his teammates to play at world-class levels like on previous teams, and instead had to take things into his own hands. If this LGD team were to succeed, it would have to be through Peanut adapting his previously aggressive playstyle into a leadership role. That being said, he was still able to carry games. His Kindred in particular was a devastating pocket pick. He had an 87.5% win rate over 8 games, with an average KDA of 8.85, and of course he still excelled on his usual champions like Nidalee and Graves. LGD went all the way to the semi-finals of the LPL Summer Playoffs, beating WE in round 1 and sweeping Invictus Gaming in the quarterfinals. Their match against Invictus Gaming really showcased how much they improved from spring. Their average game time was 25 minutes, and Peanut put up a whopping 36 KDA, only dying once the entire series. Unfortunately, they lost against JDG in the semis, but would go on to qualify for a chance to compete at the 2020 World Championship, and that they did. In what can only be described as a miracle, LGD once again beat Invictus Gaming to qualify for the 2020 World Championship. This was huge for LGD, who hadn't made a Worlds appearance for 5 years, but for Peanut too, who had failed to make Worlds in both 2018 and 2019. Although they ultimately struggled at Worlds and failed to make it past the group stage, Peanut showcased that he could still make it to international competitions. And what's more, he did it on a team that had 0 expectations, a team that was at the bottom of the league only half a year ago. Peanut elevated LGD to the 4th best team in the LPL, and throughout the year he was confidently a top 5 jungler, competing with top players like Karsa, Kanavi, SOFM, Tian, Ning and Weiwei. He may not have won anything during his time in the LPL, but all in all, 2020 really wasn't a bad year for Peanut. He could return to Korea with a smile, reassuring fans he could still compete at a high level. In 2021, Peanut continued his streak of joining low-profile teams, and accepted an offer to play for the newly branded Nongshim RedForce. And just like LGD, Nongshim were a bottom-tier team, having only just qualified for the LCK in the summer of 2020, where they finished 8th out of 10 teams. Having recently promoted to the LCK from the challenger scene, Nongshim fielded a low-budget roster of relatively new players. Rich, Bay and Dokdom were practically rookies, whilst their support Kellen had only 2 years of experience. Peanut was the veteran on the roster, meaning he would have to take on a leadership role. If this team was going to succeed, the one-dimensional Peanut of the past, who had that feast or famine playstyle, needed to go through some changes. Instead, he would have to become a selfless and adaptable team player, focusing on his strong shot-calling abilities. Unfortunately, Nongshim had a rather middling performance in the 2021 LCK Spring Split, where they placed 6th, and although they qualified for playoffs, they were swiftly taken out in round 1. Peanut's return to the LCK was far from where he wanted to be. Although his personal performance wasn't necessarily detrimental to his team's success, Nongshim still struggled against much better teams. Despite failing to get the results, there was one silver lining for Nongshim and Peanut. His shot calling had improved massively. Through the LCK mic checks, we can hear Peanut directing Nongshim via super clear callouts. He's orchestrating almost everything Nongshim does, from game plans to team fights.
그라가스 그냥 밀어줘. 그라가스 마크해줘. 어디 하면 이겨. 그래. 그리고 여차하면 내가 그냥 백도어 가면 돼. 애들아 이거 끝났어. 갈게. 너네 리콜 끊고 텔 박을 테니까 텔 타줘. 못 끝내려나?
가긴 한다. 야 이거 쌈 봐야 돼.
이거 너 살짝 살아야겠다. 이거 그냥 이제 쌈 보면 그냥 이거 카이사 가입 빠져가지고 이번에 확실해.
오케이. 나 살았어. 걸렸다.
갈게 나도.
블러프.
하나팀 볼게. 낙풍 있고. 잡았어.
끝낼게. 게임 재밌네.
아 근데 그걸 못 끝내네?
The groundworks for a good team were there, and Nongshim would only need to make a small change to be competitive in the second half of the year. Unsurprisingly then, going into summer, Nongshim demoted their mid laner Bei and signed another mostly untested player in Gory. Despite being just as weak during the laning phase as Bei was, Gory had more of an impact in the mid and late stages of the game, and this made all the difference. Nongshim's teamfighting was superb, and they followed clear game plans, being able to transition kills into objectives, and won teamfights into game ends. Once again, Peanut's shot calling was crucial, and even though both of Nongshim's solo laners struggled during the laning phase, they had really strong late game instincts. So if Peanut could get Nongshim through their weak early game, they would have a good chance of winning. After starting the summer split 5 wins and 3 losses, they went undefeated for 3 weeks and eventually ended at 12 wins and 6 losses. This score actually tied 2 other teams for first place, Damwon Kia and Gen G, but due to the LCK's game differential rules, Nongshim ended the regular season 3rd place, enough to comfortably make playoffs. Notably, Nongshim won all of their regular season games versus Damwon Kia and T1, 2 teams that would go on to make top 4 at the 2021 World Championship. This Nongshim team were no joke, and Peanut's leadership played no small part in their success. Up until this point, Peanut uniquely held 3 LCK titles on 3 different teams, and with Nongshim being a real title contender, he was looking for his 4th. But before playoffs, the regular season LCK awards were voted on. Despite only earning 600 MVP points, Peanut was awarded the most valuable player of the split, and also featured in the first All-Pro team. He might not have been the best jungler on paper, but what he brought to Nongshim was unparalleled. He really elevated this team from a group of low-profile players to 5 players who could contend with the top teams in Korea and beat titans like Damwon Kia and T1 convincingly. Peanut led the junglers in both KDA and solo kills, as well as gold, CS and experience differential at 15 minutes. Peanut's strong early game was crucial to keeping Nongshim on track, as both Gory and Rich had weak laning phases, sitting near the bottom of all laning statistics. Peanuts kept this team afloat long enough for their carries to scale up and contribute in teamfights, something Nongshim was actually really good at due to Gory, Rich and Dokdom being strong teamfighters, but also due to Peanut's shot calling. He also had the most champions played at 14, showcasing he was adaptable in draft, playing both AD and AP junglers, which gave his solo laners more choice and allowed them to pick comfort if necessary. Peanut's time on Nongshim was genuinely impressive and very underrated. Although they didn't find success in the playoffs, losing to Damwon Kia in the semi-finals, 2021 really showcased Peanut's value. It wasn't in the flashy plays, but rather the things fans couldn't see. The strong voice in game, the irreplaceable experience he'd gained from working with the best esports organizations and players in the world. During these 2 years out of the spotlight, playing on teams like LGD and Nongshim, Peanut transformed himself into a true leader. And at the end of 2021, Peanut's worth was finally recognized again when he was traded to Gen G. He went on to win 3 LCK titles for the team before leaving for Hanwha Life Esports in 2024. Fast forward to the present, Peanut's still jungling for HLE and has added 2 more titles to his cabinet. He currently sits on 7 LCK titles with 5 different teams, as well as an MSI win and an LCK Cup trophy. And if all goes to plan, he might even add another LCK win this summer. And who knows, maybe he'll finally win that Worlds trophy he's been chasing for a decade.